Oops, let me, got it. Let me record this. Recording in progress. We're talking about timelines and timelines collapsing and what happens then and what can you expect and why. I posted on my private. I'm just making sure that we're live. Sorry, you don't get my eyes for the moment. I'm live there. We're live in the group. Let me check my page. Yes. Okay. And good. I posted on my personal profile page on Facebook a couple days ago. Like, if you're noticing that things are being kooky, don't sweat it. Don't worry about it. And I talked a little bit about timelines collapsing, what happens when that happens. And a couple people were like, what the heck does that mean? So I wanted to go live and just kind of do a little bit of a tutorial on what I mean and what my understanding of that is. Hey, hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. Hi, Crystal. Hi, Jen. Thanks for joining, you guys. What my understanding is of that portion of astrophysics. So I'm going to do a little diagram here for you. Okay, so we are here. Let's say that this is our main timeline. This is our main timeline. We are here. We are going along, experiencing life. Okay, we're just here in our bodies on Earth. And this is our timeline. Hey, Andrea, you made it. Yay. Good, good, good. Thanks for joining. Okay, now, if you're wondering, hi, Keelan. Thanks for joining, love. If you're wondering, how do I know which timeline I'm on? Keelan, can you pop your question in the comments? Because I thought that was a really great question. I'd love to get to it later on in this video. And I forgot to copy paste it. How do I know that the timeline I'm on is my main timeline? Well, wherever your point of consciousness is the timeline that we're talking about, okay? Because not to get too all over the place, but essentially on every timeline, you think that is your main timeline. Okay. We're just talking about this particular timeline, the one that you're on right now, that you're watching this video. That's the one that we're talking about. I have the angels showing me like a bunch of different diagrams, and they're like, there's a bunch of timelines happening that they're watching this. And I'm like, yes, yes, yes. But we can't go that deep into it today. Okay. So just for kicks, let's assume that that timeline that you're on is the one that we're talking about. Every time you come to a crossroads where you have to make a decision, you do, right? You make a decision, and that decision either keeps you on this timeline or branches you off. Okay. So let's say that, just for kicks, we're going to keep it nice and simple. It's the morning of January 26th, and you're trying to decide, do I wear the purple shirt, the green shirt, or the orange shirt today? Okay. There is one of those answers that will keep you on this same timeline. Okay. But there are other answers that will break you off this timeline and create new timelines. The one timeline that I choose to stay on, that I want to stay on, is the highest, most expansive, most impactful, most experiential, most enjoyable, resourceful, most resourceful path. Okay. That's the one I choose to stay on. We all have one highest, most expansive, with the most resources, AKA the most money, the most impact, and the most experiences. We have one path that is the highest one. Okay, not only us as individuals, but Earth has one highest, most expansive path. The universe, our universe, has the one highest, most expansive path. Our dimension. They said, don't get in the weeds. Okay, that's enough. That's all the information you need to know. There's one highest, most expansive path, and there's one choice that would keep us on the most expansive path. Now, how do you know which is the choice that's going to keep you on the highest, most expansive path? Your intuition will tell you. So that's why intuition is so vital, because that intuition is the only thing that has access to the whole overview, okay? The whole map. Intuition is the only thing. And intuition tells you just each next step. Okay, like Google Maps, when Google Maps is like, okay, you have to go to a different screen to see the whole overview, which I prefer. But if you're just on the map part, it tells you what the one next turn is. That's like your intuition. So intuition says, today you have to wear the purple shirt. Okay, so the purple shirt keeps you on this path, right? But every time you're confronted with a decision, a new reality breaks off, a different timeline breaks off on which you made the alternate decisions. Okay, so there's a reality that breaks off that you chose to wear the green shirt, and there's a reality that breaks off that you chose to wear the orange shirt. Okay, then these timelines carry on like that, and the impact of the choices compound. Okay, so then you keep going along. And then you come to the next decision. What do you want to have for breakfast? And you choose to have eggs, but there's also the option of oatmeal. And whichever other one you don't choose creates a new timeline. Okay. And then on each of these timelines, the same thing is happening. Every time you're confronted with a decision, another timeline with the rest of the decisions break off. Okay. So we have essentially, I'm certain it can be quantified if someone had a mind to quantify it. Hi, Jen. So we have essentially infinite numbers of timelines that break off from this one main timeline. Okay, so we stay on this one main timeline, but we have all of these other realities that are happening in parallel. I don't even want to say necessarily they're happening in parallel dimensions. They are definitely happening on different timelines. That's as far as we can get into it, okay? Because the reason that I say that is because there's other stuff. Hey, Kemi. There's other stuff that's happening in other dimensions that is different from our dimension. So there are other dimensions in which the rules of physics are different, in which there might not be gravity, right? If you've seen Doctor Strange with the multiverse of madness, it just starts to tap into some of these realities. If you've seen Everything Everywhere All at Once, it starts to tap into these ideas of different timelines and different dimensions, right? They touch on both, where the do they? Yes, where the laws of physics are slightly different, right? There's one alpha timeline, and then there's a bunch of other timelines that break off. Okay, so this is like what's happening. And this is a quantum physics theory, or a bunch of quantum physics theories. I believe that all theories are going to be found to be true. They just discovered within the last 12 months that telepathy can be proven, and that teleportation can be proven. So everything that starts as a theory, I believe, comes from somewhere. I believe that comes from truth. I believe it's all going to be discovered to be scientifically proven. So I often treat theories that feel like truth to me, because I get my truth from outside of my body. I often treat them as truth, but feel free to take whatever you want with a grain of salt. Okay. Hi, Paula. Welcome. Okay. So we've got all these parallel timelines. And as you can imagine, with every single decision that you make, do you paint your nails white? Do you do this job, or this happen or this happen? With every single decision that you make, there's just zillions of timelines that are kind of floating around in creation. So every once in a while, what will happen is the universe slash our team slash the angels. I don't really have a lot of intel of who's in charge of this. And I'm also being told it's really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we know who's in charge of it or not. But essentially, every once in a while, a bunch of those irrelevant timelines are erased. Maybe not too much happens. Maybe too many bad things happen. Decisions are made, and those timelines are collapsed. Okay. But they don't necessarily always dissolve into nothing. Sometimes they do. Sometimes there's nothing beneficial on that timeline anymore, and that timeline is completely dissolved. But more often than not, our alternate realities are actually merged. Okay. So the timelines that broke off actually become merged with our main timeline that we're on right now. And sometimes multiple timelines are dissolved and collapsed and merged into our one main timeline. And this is where things get particularly interesting, because they don't always scrub the timeline. The merge is not always seamless. And perhaps it's because because humans are really, really good at explaining away things that don't make sense. Perhaps that's because they've decided it doesn't need to. We'll just explain it away, right? So that's why I was talking about, when you notice like glitches, that's kind of how they show up. They're kind of like, that's weird. Like I was saying, I wrote an email. It's happened 3 times in the last 2 weeks. I wrote an email. I pressed send. I had a very specific memory of pressing send. And then I came back and the email was never sent. One time I came back and the email was open and written and hadn't been sent. And then my boyfriend, Jim, we sat together, we made a list, and he went into his phone the very next day, and there was no signs that the list had ever been written. It wasn't like in trash. It wasn't archived. There was no empty note. We both sat there while he made the list. There was just simply no trace of it. And these are the things that happened. And when I wrote that post the other day on my main wall, on my main personal page, it was so fun to read everybody else's experiences of similar things that had happened to them. Another thing that can tend to happen sometimes when timelines collapse, and the events from each of the timelines aren't merged seamlessly, and I've had this happen so many times, is where I'm talking to someone and I have a distinct memory of us having a conversation. And I can say it word for word. I can remember what they said. I can remember their facial expression. I can remember what they were wearing. And I can say the entire thing. And the other person simply had no recollection that conversation had ever happened. And there were multiple times, and it was with different people, and there were multiple times that I really stopped, and I was like, am I sure that conversation happened? And I'm like, yes, because then we went to do XYZ activity, right? Like I could place it in space and time, but the other person had no recollection of that thing ever taking place. So these are some of the evidences, and these are some of the things that crop up when timelines merge, but they don't merge seamlessly, right? It's bananas. The other thing that I wanted to share about that, I wanted to talk about the Mandela effect. Okay, so the Mandela effect is such a fascinating thing. There are 15 books of accounts of different things that happened in time, and then suddenly it changed. And I think, Jim was telling me, I think it's called the Mandela effect, because at one point in history, Mandela was said to have died. And then all of a sudden, he wasn't dead anymore. And there was no explanation about it. And then it seemed as if he had always been alive. Other things that are part of the Mandela effect, one of the most popular, well-known ones is the Berenstain Bears. Anybody remember the Berenstain Bears? Lots of people all around the world remember the Berenstain Bears, called the Berenstain Bears. We are the Berenstain Bears, right? If you Google it right now, it's the Bernstein Bears. What? The Bernstein Bears? What? No, it was never the Bernstein Bears. It was the Berenstain Bears. So it's things like that. There are lots of them. There's an episode of The Office that both Serafina and I can distinctly remember, can describe exactly what happened. And apparently there's a few Office episodes that are affected by the Mandela effect, but it doesn't exist. It's not in the sequence. It's not in the bloopers. It's not a deleted scene. Like, it doesn't exist. So why do both of us, who are separate individuals, remember exactly how that episode went? So that's the Mandela effect. My theory is that when timelines collapse, there's a lot of people who are affected by them. And that group consciousness carries over to the merged timeline. Not fascinating? So fun, this stuff. Really, really cool. Hey, Jess. Keelan, why are they merged? What a great question. So the timelines are merged. Oh, Keelan, if you popped your question up there, I didn't actually get to see it, and I can only see 5 questions at a time. The timelines are merged because it just gets too messy and the other timelines are deemed obsolete. So either everything that was supposed to happen on that timeline happened entirely and the timeline is deemed obsolete, and boom, they're telling me that's the only time timelines are merged, when they have completed their cycle, their relevance, their point of being, then they're merged. Good. Yeah. So Keelan, if you can, let me see if I can see it on my phone, because I just have a couple minutes left. I wanted to answer your question if I can. Oh, here. How can you see or feel a wormhole showing itself? That is a great question. Okay, it's slightly different because wormholes aren't 100% associated with timelines collapsing. They're kind of a different phenomena. So let's see. There can be, depending on how sensitive, energetically sensitive you are, you might feel a wormhole opening up, but more often than not, you actually won't. You will just follow your intuitive nudges and something will happen. And then in retrospect, you'll be able to look back and go, whoa, how did that thing happen? I have no idea, right? Like, I know a lot of my community are coaches. So if one example of that would be they got a call out of the blue from someone who has no idea how they stumbled upon that person, cannot for the life of them recall how they actually came across that person. Well, that's because a wormhole opened up and shoved them through to get them connected with that person. So great questions, everybody. Thank you so much for being here, being present. That's all I have for today, but this is definitely one of my favorite topics to talk about because it's really fun, super fun when science and magic crosses. There's so much potential there. Have an amazing rest of your night. Gotta jump. Sending you so much love.